So is there an effort to silence Paul, and is the candidate not getting a fair shot in the race to be the next Republican presidential candidate? Well, to dig deeper into what's really going on here, I'm joined now by Mary Willison, volunteer organizer for the Los Angeles Liberty headquarters and Ron Paul supporter from our LA studios. Welcome to the show, Mary. So would you say that the media is actively biased against Ron Paul?
Completely. They're doing absolutely everything in their power to give less coverage and make him seem unelectable. The media is the one who started the whole rumor of unelectability, and actually Ron Paul is highly electable, and that's why they're not covering him. He's drawing crowds of, 3,000 to 5,000 on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times daily. He'll have a conference in one place and then fly over to another, and yesterday spoke to a crowd of more than 5,000 in Illinois and took them to the polls right afterward. And the media can't cover those sort of things because they are the kind of government-sponsored organizations that get taxpayer bailouts. GE, the parent company of the CNBC, got over $182.5 billion in taxpayer bailouts. And, Ron Paul does not support bailouts, and that's why.
This is what happened in Nevada.
Chuck, what happened, man? What happened in Nevada? They got 3% of the precincts in right now, and
they got 3% of the precincts in right now, and
a big win for Mitt, or much ado about nothing?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, obviously.
Here's the vote with 3% of the precincts reporting. Now here's a comparison of 3% of the precincts reporting versus 100% of the precincts reporting. Do you notice the difference? Somehow Rick Santorum lost 2,594 votes once 100% of the precincts were reporting. This is what happened in Maine.
I've been waiting so long to hear the truth.
Speaking of trying to get to the truth on something, a lot of your folks feel that the Maine caucuses were stolen from you, that you would have had it won, but that the Romney campaign conspired with the Maine state GOP to suppress your vote.
There's just a lot of suspicion. Last go-around in 2008, the only county that I won handedly was this Washington County up in the far north.
Right.
It's just sort of ironic. It does raise questions why on the morning of the vote it was canceled.
Maine is not a major state during the national primaries. Only 24 or so delegates come out of Maine to the convention. But what happened there over the weekend does more than just raise eyebrows. It is enough to make you question, was the caucus fixed? Saturday night, February 11th, the head of the Maine GOP, Charlie Webster, announced that Governor Mitt Romney won the Maine caucus by a slim margin. Official totals read that Romney barely won the caucus by less than 200 votes. The only problem? The governor was declared the winner with only 84% of precincts counted. Two counties, Washington County and Hancock County, had not held their caucuses. In Hancock, county Republicans had decided to hold their caucus this Saturday, February 18th. In Washington County, though, the state canceled the caucus because of snow concerns. Turns out the area only got a light dusting. Now, the problem here, Mr. Webster says even when those caucuses are held this Saturday, the votes won't count. But aside from the state GOP not wanting to include Washington County, there is another major issue from these Maine caucuses. Even though Governor Romney was already declared the winner, the numbers that the state GOP in Maine are reporting are, according to caucus chairman, incorrect. Take, for instance, Waldo County, where voters from 18 towns gathered for municipal caucuses in a countywide event. A total of 138 votes were cast. In the official Maine GOP tallies, however, the results from all but one of those communities, all but one, were given as a series of zeros below the name of each candidate, meaning the official tally shows that no one voted. The town of Belfast was one of 10 towns that held a joint caucus on the same day. That caucus was held on February 4th. I talked with Matt McDonald, a pastor of a small community church in Belfast. He was nominated as the chairman of the Belfast caucus. He says 22 people showed up and they caucused on the 4th. McDonald also says that the state instructed the chairman of the caucuses to not read any of the votes aloud, and instead to send them directly to Augusta. As his first order of business, McDonald made a motion to have the votes read aloud at the caucus, and it passed unanimously. At the end of the caucus,
we caucused, and the vote was 8 for Ron Paul, 7 for Rick Santorum, 5 for Mitt Romney, and there were 2 undecideds. We reported this publicly, we counted it publicly.
So public that McDonald tweeted the results on the night of the 4th. Take a look. But on Monday of this week, hearing all the controversy surrounding the announcement of Governor Romney as the winner, McDonald checked the state party's website and saw that no results had been posted from the Belfast caucus.
The lady on the line said that she had received our tallies, our votes, but hadn't recorded them online yet. And she said Romney with 9, Rick Santorum with 5, Ron Paul with 2. Well, of course, those were not the right numbers. And I told her, you know, I'm sorry, ma'am, those aren't the right numbers. And she said, well, those are the numbers we have. And I said, well, you know, there are 22 Republicans down here in Belfast who would tell you different because we counted our votes publicly. And it's kind of her, you know, it's in light of that, her voice kind of changed. And she said, thank you very much. We'll record this. And we ended the conversation.
And that is just one of several very strange inconsistencies. You see, dozens of towns on the GOP site are listed as if no one voted, including in Waterville, Maine, home to 15,000 people. A count on the site, as Maine goes, indicates that Congressman Ron Paul may have already won over Governor Romney by 10 votes.
Unfortunately, what has been happening is not unprecedented.
America, the world's greatest democracy, and at its heart, the vote, the will of the people. But how do you know if the vote is counted correctly? And if you don't know, then what have you got? This is the story of a small group of citizens headed by a grandmother from Seattle. They set out on a journey to ask one simple question. How does America count its votes? What they found was secrecy, votes in the trash, and how to change the course of history.
Something broken in the promised land.
When people see what's really going on, there's no way we will allow this to continue.
In Volusia County, Florida, an election computer counted Al Gore's totals backwards. He had negative votes.
It was showing a minus sign in front of the votes that it had subtracted from Gore. I mean, it wasn't like it was trying to hide it. It says there's minus 16,022 votes here.
How could a computer that is supposed to protect the votes of you and me count backwards to give a candidate negative votes? Either it was an error, or someone had tried to rig the election.
I put 3 words into a news search engine, voting machines and glitch, and found dozens and dozens of elections that were miscounted by the machines. And about that time, I thought, we really have a problem.
What Bev had found was that you couldn't necessarily rely on the election results produced by voting machines. In Louisiana, Susan Berniker, a Republican candidate, filmed the proof when she went to check her results on a touchscreen computerized voting system.
This is where I came the day that the warehouses are open to the candidates to inspect. So I came here with an old college buddy. He grabbed his camera, and I asked them to show me how the machine worked. So I just started fooling around with the machine. And it's when I pressed the button next to my name, and then I look down and I see Mr. Gambaluka's name in the display when I press Susan Berniker. Shall we do it again?
Do it again.
Yeah. Okay, here we go again. I'm pressing Berniker. Gambaluka shows up. So we went down the row. We probably tested 15 machines, and I said, you know what, we don't have to test anymore. And that is when I said, oh my goodness, this is terrible. We can't count our votes, so how do we know this is right?
Because the casting of the vote is secret, it's rare to get documentary evidence of machines miscounting. But Susan's experience isn't an isolated problem. Computers count around 80% of America's votes.
The evidence of voting fraud in the US election is so overwhelming. So how come the real journalists just aren't reporting it? Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. But before I go, one more question. The Australian government have been known to send the Australian military over to other countries to ensure their voting process is legitimate. What makes the USA so different?
On election day, I stay home. I don't vote. Fuck them. Fuck them. I don't vote. Two reasons I don't vote. First of all, it's meaningless. This country was bought and sold and paid for a long time ago. The shit they shuffle around every 4 years doesn't mean a fucking thing. And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around, I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote, and you elect dishonest, incompetent people, and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who in fact did not even leave the house on election day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with.